Hello everybody! Today we are discussing the only resort that is named after a generic term for a rock, Palisades, Tahoe. For those of you who are not familiar with the series, here are the rules. The two of us have each come up with 5 improvements or enhancements that we believe would significantly ameliorate the issues of the resort. We don't know what each other is proposing yet. Could be something as absurd as a high-speed rail line or entire base village, or something as mundane as a new magic carpet or parking garage. This is all hypothetical, meaning we don't think too terribly hard about permissions or money, although those are considered in most projects. We're going to critique and question as we go, and at the end, you all will put your thoughts down in the comments below, along with telling us whose plan is better. Based on the comments section of each video in the series, we will keep score over time to see who is the better planner according to the people. Simple enough? Alright, let's begin. In this episode, we're only going to cover the Olympic Valley side, aka the Squaw side, with the Alpine side getting its own episode in the future. Now currently the score is 4 for me and 1 for Arjun. Being that Arjun is down, he gets to pitch first.
Okay, for my first project, I'm proposing a Granite Chief high-speed quad. So, first of all, Granite is at this point probably the lift I'm the most familiar with at Palisades, Tahoe, and it's grown on me a lot. I understand people are not going to be happy because that triple does add a lot of character to that area. It just kind of feels like a different part of the mountain because of that. However, I think just by having this as a quad, you have some really good terrain back there, and it's kind of some of the best advanced but not quite expert terrain at the mountain. And I think having a dedicated high-speed quad for that is not very problematic when it comes to wind. So having it consistently open is going to do great. And in addition, I think this encourages a lot more people to spend time here versus other parts of the mountain that service similar terrain like Headwall, KT, etc. So yeah, I think this will do great for just spending people out and also making certain terrain that was previously lappable but maybe painful to lap a lot more lappable.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. This is also my first project. And now, bear in mind, I have skied a total of 1 day at this mountain. So this is basically my version of your Park City where, I'm kind of going in blind here. But I definitely like the idea of the high-speed quad for Granite Chief because there's so much terrain back there. It's super expansive. You've got a groomer, so I don't see why people are crying about it too much. I think that is a very solid idea.
Okay, for my next project, now a little bit of background with this one. I was torn between two things. On one hand, I could upgrade Solitude, high-speed quad, and have it kind of service Shirley as well, but as a reliever lift almost. And then I could just upgrade Shirley as a whole. And the reason I went with Shirley as a whole is because, one, if you've skied at Palisades, you know that Solitude is a bit hidden. It's not that easy to get to. It doesn't service a lot of terrain, and it just doesn't get that much lines to justify bringing in a quad there. And I do think that it's good kind of just being left on its own, and it's not straightforward getting there from the bottom of Shirley at all. I've barely even gone to Solitude from the bottom of Shirley, so I don't think upgrading it to a quad is going to change anything in that sense. So I instead went with a Shirley upgrade. We're going to upgrade it to an 8. And this, I think, is just one of the worst choke points at the mountain because pretty much everyone who ends up in this area has to take this lift out because not many people end up going to Solitude. And it consistently, from my experience, gets the worst lines. And it services the most decent terrain at the mountain for intermediates. It's high up, so I think this is the best one to kind of upgrade specifically for that demographic.
Yeah, the day that I was there with you, it was it wasn't a busy day by any stretch, but yet Shirley had decent lines. Mm-hmm. And it's because it has all those blues going into it, and it's got no redundancy. You got Gold Coast, Siberia, Big Blue, Headwall, all those 6-packs are all in the general vicinity of each other, but Shirley Lake has nothing else.
Right.
So it makes sense. Increase the capacity on some of the more popular terrain. All right. This is a little crazy, and I have the sense that a lot of people aren't going to like this, but here's my thought. Broken Arrow never runs. Washishu rarely runs, and it only runs as a reliever lift. So how about we get rid of those two and combine them? I'm proposing just a run-of-the-mill high-speed quad to go from where Washishu currently starts up to where Broken Arrow currently ends. It gives you access to that Broken Arrow terrain without having to do that hike. We would cut a traverse so that you can just go from there and get over to Siberia, and I believe it's Big Blue that are down there. So you have access to the upper mountain list. It serves the exact same purpose as Washishu, plus the Broken Arrow terrain. Because that's all Washishu does, is it gets you up to Siberia and Big Blue. Well, all of a sudden, now new Broken Arrow high-speed quad does the exact same thing. And that's my point here. I understand there's concerns about, okay, now we're going to be putting the wrong people on that Broken Arrow terrain, and that Broken Arrow terrain is never open, and blah, 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 blah. But the basic premise of it is, here's an extra lift to get people to the upper mountain with an added benefit.
Okay. Look, this is not a bad project on paper. It actually, when you look at it objectively, it kind of does make sense. However, and I'm going to be a hypocrite here because I did just say, I don't care about the character of Granite Chief. I want to put a quad here. But Broken Arrow is genuinely a hidden gem. It's really not meant to be, it's not meant to have a lift going straight up it. Just the character of that terrain. It's very far removed. It feels very different. There's a lot of terrain back there. And I just think putting a lift up it is about as wrong as putting up a lift through like Mainline Pocket or like the Palisades. It just doesn't feel right to me. With that being said, I like the idea of having a third lift going out of base. I don't know if you need that much out of base capacity at this point, but it is a Washishu replacement. So, I mean, again, I'm very torn on this. I don't have a great rebuttal to this. It makes sense, but I just don't personally like it because I understand what that terrain is, and it just doesn't feel right to have a very flashy lift going right through the gut of it. Okay, for my next project, and I don't know how people are going to feel about this one, but I think on paper, it doesn't seem like a great idea, but when you really think about it, it kind of makes sense, and that is a KT-22 upgrade from a quad to a 6. Now, let me explain myself here. I understand that you have the base-to-base gondola to act as like a redundancy lift, as a reliever lift, whatever you want to call it. However, that thing does not run on the most crucial days for KT, and that's storm days. You don't have that thing spinning to give that extra capacity. It just doesn't run on storm days because of all, they're focused on Avi bombing everything else, and that's kind of one of their lower down priorities. So actually having, and so on those days, KT, as we all know, gets like absolutely slammed, like because the upper mountain is completely closed, and that's really the only lift with genuinely great terrain that remains open on storm days. So I think giving it the 6-pack upgrades, similar to all the other lifts on the mountain, would do wonders to help with lines here on storm days. And I just think it's also an older lift. It was, I think, 1995, so it's reaching the end of its lifespan. So I think you might as well just upgrade it. Even though the base-to-base sits there, it's worth upgrading it on its own.
Here's what I'm going to say. This is the exact same point you just brought up with me. It just doesn't feel right. Like, think about this. Think about, like, Red Dog. Like, you got this LPA 6-pack with this super, like, rounded-off terminal. And, like, aesthetically, those, like, I just cannot picture it.
Uh-huh.
I cannot picture an LPA 6-pack running up KT. Like, that Space Jet terminal is iconic. Like, when people think of the 90s Uni terminal, they think of KT-22. Those two are synonymous with each other. And, like, can you imagine the local backlash if they tried this? Like, not because it's bad for them, not because there's anything wrong with it, but just because people like KT. And they don't want to see that lift go.
Well, I'll bring up 2 points to that. First of all, it's kind of too late because you already have a gondola going up this terrain, crisscrossing over KT. So if there was character to that terrain, it's already been kind of ruined by that gondola. Second of all, people had the same complaints. When KT-22 used to be a double back in the day, people were upset when a quad was built. And now everybody loves a quad. You're always gonna get pushback when you have terrain serviced by an iconic lift and you're upgrading it now to a higher flashier lift. At least you're going from quad to 6-pack here, rather than with something like Broken Arrow, you're going from double to quad. I just see less of an issue. You're already in the high-speed department. You have a gondola, a freaking 50 million base-to-base gondola swinging over the terrain. At the end of the day, I don't think a six-pack, the cost of adding a six-pack there is, how do I phrase this? I don't think that the cost of adding a six-pack outdoes what it's going to do for this terrain on like storm days.
Okay, my third project, taking a big step back from the craziness I just proposed before, is a Mountain Meadow high-speed quad. And this really just follows in the footsteps of the likes of Steamboat and Beaver Creek and Telluride, trying to move the beginners onto the mountain. They've already done that.
Interesting. So I like this idea. Again, it's another one where I like the idea on paper. Kind of makes sense. However, these lifts are extremely short. Both like Mountain Meadow, Belmont, they're extremely short. Bailey's Beach, same thing. I like the idea because those terrain pods are a little bit harder than this one. This just having a detachable allows beginners to get onto the lift so much easier. But I just don't know if the length of it really justifies having a high speed. I think there's bigger fish to fry elsewhere on the mountain, I guess is my main point. But I like the idea on paper. All right, for my final project, I feel like I might lose some people on this one, but let's see. It's a bit ambitious. So this is, as we all know, the worst part about getting to Palisades or Alpine on a storm day is the access road traffic, because you can oftentimes be sitting along that thing for hours upon hours, and then you don't show up to the resort until noon. I've had this happen to me. I've had friends. This has happened to them. So it's an issue that everyone deals with, and there's really no good solution other than go earlier. So what I have proposed right now is a little crazy, but it's essentially a widening of that access road from a 2-laner to a 4-laner. And I just think having it in this system would just naturally allow for more capacity on that road, which would basically allow more people to get to the resort in a more timely fashion.
My concern with this road is just that then you're going to have a merge point down there, and it's just going to prolong the traffic. I see the vision, and there are a lot of studies that say, adding a lane does this, adding a lane does that, and I cannot tell you whether expanding it to 4 lanes would really help or not. But what I can tell you is that I highly doubt Caltrans is going to do that, because they have a lot bigger projects that they're worried about now. What I do think that they might be more interested in, my counter proposal here, is just extending that right turn lane way farther back, because right now a lot of those right turners get stuck waiting for the light, even though they want to turn right and bypass the light, because that right turn lane is so short. I think if you extend that thing to like a half mile, maybe even a mile long, you'd move those right turners through. You can keep them going, keep them turning right even as that light is red, which will in turn help all the traffic all the way down the road.
Interesting. So basically, if I'm understanding what you're saying correctly, what you're doing is you're dividing the traffic. Let me rephrase this. Instead of what's currently going on, you're dividing the traffic into, okay, people who are going straight go to Alpine, people going right going to Palisades. And you're having that go down way further down the road. And by doing that, you allow that 50% or whatever, 40% that's going to Alpine to always be flowing. And then this 50% turning right into, or no, I got it backwards. 50% who are going to Palisades will always be making that right turn. Am I getting it backwards?
It should be, even when the light is red, so the Alpine people can't go.
Yeah.
The Olympic, the Palisades, the Squaw, whatever you want to call it, those people are still moving.
Right.
Which keeps the line 8 miles down the road still moving.
Right. Oh, I actually like that a lot better. We'll go with that. We will go with that.
Okay. My final project is nothing too crazy. It's a replacement of the resort chair. And I figured, it's called the resort chair. It's at this, whatever Everline Resort or whatever I think it's called. Let's make it look nice. Let's make it a resort, okay? Let's put in a gondola. It doesn't need to be high capacity. You can do an 1,800 people per hour, 6-person, 8-person gondola. But right now, that resort chair is just so long of a ride. Something needs to be done. And I think a gondola makes the most sense, just to fit with what they're trying to make the character of that area be.
This is another one where I like this on paper. It makes a lot of sense because, yeah, as you said, that hotel, super nice, and having a gondola there would look great. And this is some really underrated terrain, honestly. It's a little low on the mountain, but there's some good blue terrain here. And this, in theory, would relieve other parts of the mountains that offer similar terrain. However, I just don't think it's necessary because, I mean, even on storm days when the entire upper mountain is shut, even then this does not get that much traffic. Like, it's really just Red Dog and KT. And then on non-storm days when the upper mountain is open, this barely sees any lines. So I like it on paper, but I just don't think it's worth the investment of putting a gondola in there. Whereas you could put that somewhere else on the mountain and it would probably do a lot better.
I mean, I don't know where else on the mountain you would put this, and to be honest,
Yeah.
like I said at the beginning of the video, I don't know much about Palisades, and I didn't really have any better ideas. Okay, that seems to wrap it up for proposals and challenges. Be sure to let us know who won down below. And of course, we would love to hear your guys' thoughts on our projects and what you would propose as well. So leave all that down below. As always, thank you all for watching. All our love, we're out.